The incredible thing is that all these things coming from nature going into form these paintings that are so much about humanity. I find this an incredible bridge, and I'm really interested in that. The work's called Matter of the Masters. It's just a really fantastic opportunity to be able to relate my contemporary installation work to this fantastic Rembrandt and the Dutch Masters of the Golden Age exhibition downstairs, and to reveal what is the underbelly of these works, what is within the inside of their works. The whole of this project began with a very, very dear friend of mine, and she became a conservator and ended up in Holland working at the Maurits House. She worked on anatomy lesson of Dr. Tulp. The extraordinary thing is I walked into her studio just as it was completed, and I saw all these amazing kind of data and samples and ultraviolet readings and infrared and everything, and I just thought, oh my God, that's just so much the sort of material I'm interested in making art about. For this particular show, I'm beginning to gather all the different things I'll need, and you can see here there's, the lab glass, and I have a very big collection of it. The Conservation Department of Art Gallery of New South Wales is actually lending me a lot of glass as well. Glass is the thing that creates visibility. Glass creates lenses, windows. Scientific glass is something that I've continued to use for the symbolic use of the fact that it indicates transformation, or the alchemical story of one material transforming into another. I've always been interested in looking historically at how art and plants have been displayed. Museums, and natural history museums in particular, have been one of my really big sources of research. If we look into the studio, you can sort of see how I actually have a storage system of all of these acrylic boxes. Using the light, glassy, reflective feeling and mirrors is very different to, of course, the original wooden cabinet. But it is this ability to gather a lot of different things together and to create meaning between those objects. The periodic table is a beautiful underlying thing in so much of my work, which is about matter. What I initially planned to lay it out was in a colour. It was going to be dictated by what minerals and the colours, the pigments that they created. And then, being Rembrandt and old masters, there's a lot of brown and black and white. And so they gather in the centre as a way of creating a space between those stronger colours. And then the blues merge out into the greens, and the reds out into the yellows and the gold. And to my surprise and delight is so many people recognise a lot of the minerals. So the X-ray fluorescence is a way of scanning paintings to read the colours within it. Along here is the elemental readings of one particular painting of Rembrandt's. To image it through the lead is, of course, that's what's revealed, and then the different elements. The eggshells, of course, are one of the elements making up the tempera paint. I'm going to just leave these eggshells just like this. I just love them sitting in my studio like this, and then I imagine them reflecting into the mirror so that they'd be brown and then they'd be white. So that's a kind of quite nice little thing of like symbols of birth as well, or something. It'll still come out very much pigmenty, because I haven't really properly dissolved the pigment, and then I'll just sprinkle a bit more on top. There is an indication both of indigo and of madder in the cabinet, but a lot of the other plants that give glazes and give colours, these are very often very transparent, often very fugitive colours. But the interesting thing to me is that when a colour comes from a plant, they call it a lake, which I think is a really nice thing. So the idea of the plants bleed these lakes. It's so inherent, I think, in my work, addressing our relationship to nature, how interconnected we are, and this is really how interconnected culturally we are with it, without even knowing. I think it works as its own installation, but I think that it's much richer to, having seen the show downstairs, or before one sees the show downstairs, to understand that those paintings that we just read as, you know, these images and stories on the wall have been made up by all of these different elements which the painters made themselves. It's the invisible side. I love revealing what's invisible.